The next speaker on the panel is going to give us the perspective from the development community. Leith Moore, many of you know him quite well, Vice President of Sorbera Group, says here he's got 50 years experience in land development. He doesn't look that old, so I'm going to let him describe himself here. Leith.
I don't have a slide. I have a portrait in my attic that is aging more quickly than I am. We've all read Mr. Wilde's novel. I'm not in a very happy mood here this morning. I have three reasons. One, the coffee sucks. If we're going to choose a growth plan model going forward, let's not follow the English example of how not to make coffee. You know, you can sit beside a coffee pot anywhere in England and watch them make it, and it comes out the same sludge. You'll have to reboot that because I need to put my computer down. Sorry. Secondly, some of us work better after 5 o'clock in the evening. It's a natural clock rhythm. Some people work better in the morning. I'll let you guess which one I am. Thirdly, this room has been repainted and covered. I have much blood on the floor and the wall here. Some of my favorite NIMBY moments have occurred in this room. And I never enjoy coming to North York City Hall. I never enjoy coming to this room. And my bad experiences here are legendary. So with those provisos, I'll try to cheer up. But I think that it's far too soon to draw any conclusions with respect to the growth plan. Other than in the city of Toronto, we are still struggling through official plan conformity at the local level, secondary plan preparation, to be followed eventually by block plans, draft plans, zoning bylaws, and site plans. I have yet to receive an approval for anything that's within 2 to 3 years of development within a new area designated in the growth plan or in the conforming, or proposed conforming regional plans. So we are years away from seeing anything on the ground that results from this growth plan. The development industry, I can tell you, is I think been very supportive of the growth plan from its inception. We were part of the Smart Growth Panel. We've always worked with the Growth Secretariat, ITEA. We've been big proponents of the themes of the growth plan. And I don't think the industry has ever really bought into the idea that we had a sprawl problem in this city. Sprawl is what we saw in a lot of places where you could drive around and find all kinds of pop-up subdivisions all over the countryside. That was never a problem in this area. It was always a very orderly progression of development. People can argue that the densities were too low, they didn't like the form of development, they didn't like the way it looked. And I think a lot of the obsession lately has been the way things look. I could tell you that in the greenfield areas, new development is quite dense. The planners have us at a secondary plan level figuring out whether, you know, we should be 100 or 102 feet deep on lot depth. They want us to compress the size of the lots, have smaller lots, and we're good with that. I wouldn't mind having a public laneway or two to make them look better. But of course, municipalities are opposed to public lanes because that's a cost. So what we should do is put them into condo or else just have a garage door and a house behind it. So we're having these battles about densification in greenfield areas all the time. I would invite most of you to go out and take a look at the better forms of development that are occurring out there. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of proposed nodal transit-oriented development happening all over the greenfield area. I would suggest to you that actually what we need is about 1,000 bulldozers. And we start just east of the Scarborough Bluffs, and we make a big U-turn somewhere south of Steeles, head over through North York to Etobicoke and back down to the lake. And let's start again there, because it's the inner ring suburbs built in the 50s and 60s that are a real problem. The real hindrance to improved transit and connectivity and jobs isn't in the suburbs, in the 905s. It's really in that inner ring. And I guess I would also take a little bit of I would like to comment on Simcoe. I think the province, in dealing with Simcoe, did a wise thing. You know, we have something in this world called economic man. And everybody who owns a house now and has cable is looking to develop their property. They're all flippers. You know, in our industry, we're fond of saying that everybody's a developer. I don't know anybody who isn't buying a condo, expecting it to increase in value, sell it for a bigger condo, sell that condo to move to a house or a townhouse, either their dream brownstone in downtown, or if they're having kids, move out to, a house in Leslieville, which now costs $800,000. Or, you know, if they can't afford that, drive till they qualify. So let's please all remember that people have their own aspirations. The individual consumer has their aspirations, and none of us can really sit here and tell them what they shall live in. They will live in what they think is best for them. Toronto is in the midst of, I would call, I think, a generational change. It's going to take time before our planners know how to plan for it, our builders know how to build for it, and people want to live in a mid-rise project and raise a family. I would say to you today, there's very few of those people. And so what we find is that people are moving as their life cycle changes. So they're going from starting out in a condo downtown, usually renting it, by the way, because you all understand that the condo business in this city is building rental housing. It's not actually building units that people buy to live in. 90% of the units are sold to investors who rent them out. Over time, some buildings flip over into a greater percentage of owners within it, but they're largely rental housing. And the industry has not yet really perfected or even gotten good at a mid-rise form that somebody would buy to live in. I'm going to go over some reasons why a little later, because I think actually the focus of our discussions and the planners' discussions, the civic discussion, the political discussion, needs to be about barriers to intensified housing for families. This discussion about numbers, I think, is misplaced. We have, as an industry, really have bought into the growth plan, and I can tell you that inside the City of Toronto, I don't think there's a site that's appropriate for any kind of development that hasn't been bought by somebody. I'm looking very hard to try and buy any kind of a site along a transit line, proposed or otherwise. My big disappointment is in the slowness of that transit being delivered, but there is a tremendous amount of investment. There was a study done at one time. Somebody had a great slide showing a relationship of applications and proposed transit lines. It could probably be updated both in 905 and in 416. But you'll find that the industry has spent a lot of money and invested in what we think is the future of redevelopment and intensification. Inside the built boundary, there isn't a site, whether it's a townhouse, a stacked townhouse, a walk-up, an apartment tower, that isn't subject of bidding between developers. Matter of fact, if you think you know a site that somebody hasn't bought and you would like to talk to me afterwards, we do pay commissions. It's a very, very competitive market. So we've bought in. We're evolving our built form. We're studying a lot. I think developers probably travel more than planners to look at examples of good development. I would take you all to Copenhagen. There's some great stuff happening in Copenhagen. Can we build it here? No. But boy, I'd like to. We're still bound up in reviews, and it's already been referenced, the number of reviews. I think that in Ontario, we specialize in the business of studying. It's better to study than to try it, implement it, and then maybe try something different if it doesn't quite work. I think David Crombie once said, perfection is the enemy of good. And I think we're stuck in that cycle of seeking perfection. Going forward, on the growth plan, I've talked to Larry more than 40 times about this, including when in your previous role at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The province has to get out of the weeds. The growth plan is a really great plan. It's been said perfectly already by Mr. Horn. It's just good planning. We've always recognized it. We've always supported it. What we are dismayed by is the years of arguing about numbers. How many acres are needed for how many people? You know, it's not an outcome that people are looking at. They're looking at numbers. And these numbers, the battles are legendary between regional planners and provincial planners and local planners, and who knows best, you know, what the takeouts are. And, you know, I'm pretty sure we're not redeveloping the cemeteries, so I'm okay with them coming out. I own land in Brantford, and I can tell you how difficult it is owning land in Brantford. I mean, there are things like land rights and fights. It's quite bizarre. So I think that the local planners know a lot. They're very competent. We have a very, very proficient regional and local planning system. I, for one, am not surprised that the outcome of the Places to Grow exercise has an equivalent number of acres that would have been predicted by various municipalities, because I think they've always done a good job of doing good planning. And there has been intensification occurring in the 905s for decades. I think it's a bit of a bias to suggest that you know, it's only Toronto that has its act together. So, and the other thing that I think the industry would say is, in addition to, please get back up to the overall planning and leave the implementation to regions and towns, is that there is a desperate need for employment lands to be taken outside and planned beyond the scope of these timeframes. Employment lands take a long time to realize. They should not be put into a time frame. They're strategic, they should be identified, they should be protected. Just call it what it is today, set them aside, and stop the speculation on what they'll become. I'm going to try and delete some of the stuff that has already been referenced by other people, which is great. So when you do that, of course, you make a jumble of what might have been a coherent presentation. So I'm going to skip down and go on to my other favorite subject, intensification. I think every company that I know has started an infill or intensification department, division, intent, call it what you like. We've all tried to do it. We've all bought sites to do it. And what it has reminded us most clearly is that planning is politics. When I graduated from Waterloo as an urban planner, I had my first real interview with Mr. Cerbera. It was only 33 years ago. It wasn't 50.
That's what it says here.
Yeah. Well, it's because the company has 50 years development experience. I've only been with them 33. But Edward Cerbera said to me, so what is planning? I went, well, I don't know. I just graduated Waterloo after 4 years of planning school. I'm not quite sure I know. Let's see. Let's take a crack at it. Planning is, you know, the allocation of scarce resources with a feedback loop to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And he looked at me like I was, you know, crazy. I hadn't learned anything. And he said, no, Leith, planning is politics, and you best not forget that. So 33 years later, I would put it in bold. Planning is politics. There is no decision on a development, a project, a policy that does not go through a political approval. What is the biggest problem we have in intensification? Politics. So we can talk all we like about densities and numbers. The problem is politics. I don't know very many municipalities who are overwhelmingly receptive, other than Waterloo, of intensification. I know many, who I won't mention here, because it's being recorded, who are completely opposed to it. I know many ward councillors who try to frustrate it. And, you know, the problems are legion. If they can't beat you on the zoning, they can always get you with the finances. There's nothing like a front-ended development charge to stop high density. There's nothing like $100,000 a door costs to stop development. There's nothing like, you know, the idea that developing within a built-up area is somehow cheaper is a falsehood. Well, at least if you look at the development charges, it's a falsehood. So the costs of assembly are higher, the costs of approval are higher, it takes longer, the fights go on and on. People are reviewing whether we should have the OMB. If we don't have the OMB, I guarantee you there will be no intensification. At the end of the day, it's a good market. People want to go there. I think that right now, unfortunately, it's split between townhouses and small singles for intensification and or massive rental towers is what we're building. And so we come to some of my other problems that I've got. There's been no movement to fix rental housing. You know, you go to the US and look at all the investment in infrastructure and transit, and we have the province spending billions of dollars. There are a few hundred rental housing purpose-built units built in this city in a year. My company used to build hundreds in a year itself. The difference is federal tax policy, local tax policy. You know, our rental buildings are taxed at a 2.5 to 1 rate to a condominium unit that's owned by somebody. So there's all kinds of reasons for us to go and build a condo and then rent it to somebody. All kinds of reasons because of financing and taxation. You can make more money building a building, selling it to individuals and let them rent it than you could if you built it yourself. And that's been the case for 30 years. It's no secret. I think every policymaker from the federal level down knows it. There's been no change. There's no impetus for change. There's no change on the horizon. How can we go and build all this transit and then expect that the industry will go and create more affordable forms of housing for families with basically both hands tied behind its back? We've got to go buy the land, fight the approvals, then do it on the back of condominium forms of development, which right now is an investor, not necessarily a real buyer. So I think that all this policy work needs to be informed by a lot more on-the-ground truthing of pro forma math, economics, buyer preferences. It's not to say that we can't go in a direction, and I think the growth plan does a great job of setting a direction, but there needs to be a whole lot of work done at local levels to enable this rather than frustrate it. And I think that if you were to survey the industry right now, you would find that we're being frustrated at most turns rather than enabled. And ultimately, if that's the case, the growth plan can win as many awards as it likes, but let's not pretend that we're going to have the province dictate to local municipalities how it will go. That is not going to happen in this political world. Just not going to happen. So, with all that happy stuff, the barriers to intensification remain. We've suggested lots of ways that it could be improved. Maybe I'll address a few of them in the question period, but, you know, people want us to be like Europe, but we don't have 6-story wood. And every time we get close to it, somebody burns down a building. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I can't say anything. Shouldn't record these things. You'd get a lot more juicy theories. So I'm just going to conclude with one thing. We have to have a balanced market. We need more than condo solutions. We need people to encourage intensification at the local level. I think the province has set a great target. I think they've set a leadership direction. But there are innumerable obstacles at a local level to implement it in most municipalities, particularly in this area where I have most of my experience. We're not feeling a lot of local love, maybe is the way I could put it. So I think that buyers who I deal with, you know, I make a habit of going onto the sales floor and, you know, watching how they react to the products you put out there. And so I go to the sales floor of my condo projects and I meet a lot of brokers and other brokers, dealing with brokers, and I don't really meet any real people. I go onto our low-rise floor, because we build both, and I see a lot of real buyers who, when the bank tells them because of their interest rate, they can have more money. I've yet to see a single buyer come back and say, you know what, I'm taking the same house I wanted to buy. They take that money and they buy 2 more bathrooms and 3 more bedrooms. Everybody's a developer. I think that the industry's doing a good job of finding the niches, and we're building for these niches as they cycle through. I'm watching my own stepdaughter do it. She bought a condo from me. She's now, with some financing help from me, buying a house in Leslieville, which is $800,000 for a semi with noise transmission issues, because she's pregnant, and then she'd be damned if she's raising her kid in even a 100-unit condo downtown. You know, and her sister is like, I'm going to be pregnant and I'm moving to Bradford because, you know, it's just too intense in the city. And the people in Bradford are going, well, these city people are driving me crazy. I've got to move out to Victoria Harbor because, you know, the traffic in Bradford's killing me. And so people in Victoria Harbor are going, our world is ending. Where am I going? They're going to Temagami. And I'm advocating that we take all the money we raise for most environmental efforts and stop picking on poor old Simcoe County, who have every right to have some jobs and some houses for themselves, and for them having. I'm in a fight with residents in Beaton over, you know, doing 40-foot lots. They're like shocked. And townhouses, I'll tell you, have been banned. Absolutely no way. I had townhouses out of the plan. Out of the plan. Because it's not to their style of living. And they live there, and they call those shots. And so until the day comes where we say to ourselves, we have the right to tell those people that they must have apartments, they must have townhouses, this is the way it will go. I think we take all the money we can save, and we buy back every rural severance, and we buy back every underdeveloped mining town in the north that's not used, and return it to the wilderness. And we get far more return out of that than we would debating density in Simcoe. Thank you.